Daniel had been on Station Helion 9 for 37 days when everything changed. He had arrived as a simple engineer, someone who liked fixing broken things and keeping busy with wires, circuits, and tools. Nothing about him felt special. He was not a soldier, not a commander, not a diplomat. He was just Daniel Hart, a man who liked solving problems one bolt at a time. But ever since the Aurelian delegation came to the station, his work had turned strangely important. The Aurelians were tall, crystal-skinned beings who moved with an elegant calm. Their armor looked like shining glass, but Daniel had discovered that it was made of complex energy plates filled with living memory codes. Their technology was beautiful but fragile, especially when damaged. And the Aurelians were not used to humans repairing anything for them. They usually worked alone, trusting only their own people. But when one of their shield arrays had collapsed after a magnetic storm, Daniel was the only one who stepped forward to help. He remembered the moment clearly. The storm had slammed the station like a giant fist, and alarms had echoed across every corridor. The Aurelian shield core turned unstable, glowing red, threatening to overload. Everyone backed away because an Aurelian energy core could explode if handled wrong. But Daniel couldn't just stand there while the Aurelians panicked and the station shook. So he took off his jacket, grabbed his toolkit, crawled under the vibrating console, and began working while sparks rained around him. He didn't know the Aurelian language, but he knew machines. He worked for hours, hands shaking, sweat dripping, until the core stabilized and the shield turned blue again. When he stood up, covered in dust and burn marks, he simply said, "Should be good now." He didn't realize he had just changed the course of two species. After that day, Aurelian eyes followed him everywhere he went, especially one pair Sereth's. She was slender and tall, with marbled crystal skin that shifted colors when she moved. Her eyes glowed softly like blue stars. From the first time Daniel saw her, she carried herself like someone important, maybe a warrior or a leader. Yet she watched him quietly every time he worked on one of their devices, as if trying to understand him. Daniel thought she was only curious. He had no idea she was evaluating him for something far deeper. On the 37th day, when most humans were resting, Daniel stayed late in the engineering bay. He was repairing a portable Aurelian scanner for the 10th time, because the internal pathways refused to align properly. He rubbed his eyes, sighed, and leaned closer to the open device. "You work, even when others sleep." Daniel jumped a little. He turned and saw Sareth standing near the doorway, her posture straight, her expression calm. "Oh, hey," he said, wiping his hands on his shirt. "Humans rarely do," she replied softly as she stepped inside. Daniel chuckled awkwardly. "Can I help you with something?" "Yes," she said. "It has been over a month." He blinked. "Over a month? Since what?" "Since you saved my people from the shield collapse," she answered. "Since you risked yourself for lives you did not know." She paused, her glowing eyes steady on his face. "I am ready." Daniel had no idea what she meant. He scratched the back of his neck. "Ready? For what exactly?" She took one more step forward, close enough that the faint light from her skin reflected on his arms. Then she said a sentence that froze him completely. "It's been over a month. Human, I'm ready to be yours." Daniel's brain crashed. He looked at her with wide eyes, mouth slightly open, shocked beyond words. "What?" he whispered, because that was all he could manage. She didn't seem confused by his reaction. She simply nodded once, slowly, like someone making a serious decision. "I choose you." "Choose me for what?" Daniel asked, trying not to sound like he was panicking. "Sareth, what are you talking about?" She raised her hands to her shoulders. Her armor, made of transparent crystalline plates that shimmered like starlight, clicked softly as she touched the release nodes. Daniel's breath caught. Wait, hold on," he said quickly, waving his hands. "You don't have to, take anything off." Really? You don't? I don't expect anything. Sareth tilted her head slightly. Do humans not remove outer layers during trust rituals? Trust what? Ritual? She gave him a patient look, like she finally understood the misunderstanding. This is not about romance, she said calmly. This is about honor. Daniel let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Okay. That's good. You nearly stopped my heart, though. She blinked once, confused. I do not wish to damage your internal organ. That's not what I meant, Daniel replied weakly. Sareth placed her hands on her armor again. Among my people, removing the outer plates before another person means, I trust you with my life. We do this only for someone who has proven themselves worthy. Daniel stared at her. And you think I'm worthy? You worked until your hands shook, she said. You did not ask for reward. You acted before thinking of yourself. You prevented the Shield Corps from destroying hundreds of lives. Such actions bind destinies. Daniel had no words for a moment. He swallowed hard. So, this is basically your version of a handshake? It is nothing like a handshake, Sareth said, almost offended. This is a sacred tradition. Right. Sorry. My mistake. She stepped closer, and her armor began glowing faintly where the panels connected. Daniel slowly raised his hand. Sareth, before you start removing pieces of your armor, can you explain the whole thing? I don't want to accidentally insult you. She stopped moving her hands and nodded politely. That is wise. She told him about the Aurelian trust ritual. How the armor they wore was more than protection. It carried their memories, their battle experiences, the moments that shaped them. Removing it before someone meant showing the parts of themselves they usually hid. It was not about physical exposure, but emotional exposure. A sign that the other person was honorable enough to see the real self beneath the armor. Daniel listened silently, feeling smaller with every moment. Not because he was afraid, but because of how important this was to her. So when you said you're ready to be mine, Daniel said slowly, you meant... Yes, Sareth replied. Completely. He rubbed his forehead. I wish you had led with that. I believed humans understood ceremonial context, she said. But I see now that assumptions can be dangerous. Bye. Very, Daniel agreed. She stepped closer again, standing only a foot away. Her armor shimmered like a calm sea under moonlight. May I begin? She asked. Daniel took a slow breath. If this is what your culture needs to show trust, then yes, I'll be here. She nodded gently and touched the crystal plate on her shoulder. There was a soft sound, like chimes ringing underwater. The plate loosened and folded back. Daniel expected something dramatic beneath it. But instead he saw delicate lines glowing faintly under her skin, lines that looked like fractures, but were actually living memory marks. These are my battles, she said. My family, my history. Daniel was silent, because for once, no words felt enough. She removed another plate from her upper arm, then one from her back. None of it felt uncomfortable or inappropriate. It felt sacred. Every plate she removed revealed more glowing lines, each telling a story in a language Daniel could not read but could feel. Do humans share themselves this way? She asked softly. Not like this, Daniel said. But we have things we show only to people we trust too. I think we're more similar than we thought. Sareth looked at him, her eyes calm and thoughtful. Then perhaps this ritual is a beginning, not an ending. Daniel nodded slowly. He didn't know what he had started a month ago when he fixed that shield core. But he could feel that whatever this moment was, it mattered. Not just for Sareth, not just for him, but for something larger than both of them. As the last of the upper armor loosened, Sareth bowed her head slightly. Daniel Hart, she said. From this moment, you are one I trust. With my life. Daniel exhaled slowly. And I'll do my best not to break that trust. She looked up at him, her eyes glowing softly. That is all that is required. And the night on Helion 9 grew quiet, with both of them standing in the soft blue glow of Aurelian armor, unaware of the events this simple ritual would set into motion. Daniel barely slept after the ritual. He lay awake in his small station bunk, staring at the ceiling, thinking about everything Sareth had told him, everything she had shown him, and everything he still did not understand. He kept replaying the soft sound of her armor plates unlocking, the glow of her memory lines, and the calm trust in her eyes. It was overwhelming, but in a quiet and dignified way, he could not forget. By morning, the whole engineering section felt different. Human workers moved with curiosity, whispering about rumors that an Aurelian warrior had performed something unusual with a human. Daniel tried to ignore the stares, but he knew why they were happening. The Aurelians rarely interacted closely with humans, and never in a ceremony that meant so much culturally. He hoped Sareth wasn't facing trouble because of him. He found her in the Aurelian wing just after midday. The Aurelian hallways glowed softly with blue and silver light. The walls looked like flowing glass, shifting patterns, like water. Sareth stood near a high platform, speaking with two other Aurelians. When she noticed Daniel approaching, she finished her conversation and met him near the entrance. "You look troubled, Daniel Hart," she said gently. "Is something wrong?" "I'm just worried," he replied. "Did I cause any problems for you?" "People are talking." Sareth tilted her head. "Humans speak too much. But no, you caused no problems. Many are surprised, but surprise is not danger." "That's good," Daniel said with a relieved breath. She studied his face for a moment. Her eyes glowed brighter, a sign he had learned meant she felt something strongly. "Walk with me," she said. They moved down a quiet hallway, where soft lights formed patterns across the floor. Sareth's armor plates, now mostly reattached, shined in smooth layers except for a few she had intentionally left open as a symbolic sign of trust. Daniel noticed the careful way she walked, like she was thinking through each step. "You told me last night that trust is important among your people," Daniel said. "But why choose me? Surely there were warriors or leaders more deserving." "Deserving?" Sareth repeated. "Worthiness is not measured by rank. It is measured by action." He frowned slightly. "I only fixed a shield." "You risked your life to fix a shield," she corrected him. "And you cared nothing for reward, praise, or fear. You acted because people needed help. That is rare." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck. "I'm not a hero. I just do my job." Sareth slowed her pace. "Perhaps that is what makes your actions strong. You did not need to be a hero. You simply chose to do what was right." Daniel didn't know how to respond. He looked down the long hallway, his voice softer. "Where I'm from, people help others when they can. I didn't think about it much." Sareth turned to face him fully. "Then humanity has a strength my people must learn." Daniel blinked. "What do you mean?" "We Aurelians follow codes, laws, traditions. We rarely act without long thought. But sometimes action is needed fast. You showed us that." Daniel felt heat in his face, embarrassed. "You're giving me too much credit." "No," she said firmly. "I am giving balance." They continued walking until they reached a large chamber with tall pillars of shining blue light. Daniel had never been inside this room before. Sareth stopped at the edge of the glowing pillars. "This is our memory hall," she said. "Every warrior carries personal memories in her armor. But this place holds the stories of our people." Daniel stepped closer, watching currents of light flow inside the pillars. They looked like rivers of color, swirling with voices he couldn't quite hear. "You brought me here for a reason," he said quietly. "Yes," she answered. "You trusted my ritual. even without understanding it fully. Now I will explain why it is so rare. She stepped closer to one of the glowing pillars and touched her hand against it. The pillar shifted colors, turning from blue to amber. Daniel heard faint echoes, whispers, distant voices, fragments of something old. Long ago, Sareth said, Aurelians were betrayed by outsiders we trusted. It caused terrible loss. Since then, we share our memories only with our own people. We remove our armor only before those who are family or bound by oath. And you did that with me, Daniel said softly. Yes. Because I saw something in you that reminded me of what we lost. We used to believe in others. We used to form bonds beyond our own kind. We used to trust. Her voice lowered. But we forgot how. Daniel felt the weight of her words. So, this ritual, it isn't only about trust. It's about healing. Sareth looked at him, her expression gentle. Yes, you help repair machines, but maybe you will help repair something in us too. Daniel swallowed. It was a lot to take in, but he felt honored, in a way he couldn't explain. As they left the chamber, a loud alarm suddenly echoed through the corridor. Both of them stopped. The lights shifted from blue to red. Attention, all personnel. Unidentified fleet. Detected at system edge. Repeat. Unidentified fleet. Detected. Daniel's heart dropped. That doesn't sound good. Sareth's posture changed instantly, going from calm to fully alert. Her partial armor closed with mechanical clicks, sealing into combat readiness. We must go to command. They hurried through the corridors as station personnel rushed past them. Humans and Aurelians both ran toward their posts. The station's vibration changed slightly. Something Daniel had learned meant the defense systems were powering up. When they reached the command center, human officers stood beside Aurelian tacticians, studying the holographic map of the approaching fleet. The image flickered with dozens of red dots. Who are they? Daniel asked. Vile Dominion, Sareth said. A hostile power. They do not respect treaties, only strength. Daniel felt his stomach tighten. What do they want with this station? Opportunistic pressure, perhaps, Sareth said. Or they sense weakness. Because of the storm damage, Daniel muttered. A human officer looked at him. Daniel, we need engineering ready, in case we must raise secondary shields. Road. Lukteen. Where can? Way. Yes, sir, Daniel said, and ran toward the engineering panel. Sareth remained close behind him. I will assist you. You're a warrior, he replied. Shouldn't you be with your people? My people know what to do in battle, she said. But you know the inner systems. If the Veil attack, the humans and Aurelians must work together. You are the bridge. Daniel didn't feel like a bridge. He felt like one man facing a giant storm. But he didn't argue. He opened the panel and began typing rapidly, running diagnostics, checking energy flows, and verifying shield alignment. Sareth watched every movement, absorbing everything he did. The primary shield is stable, Daniel said. But if we take heavy fire, the secondary arc might collapse. I need to route more power from the coolant grid. I will hold the panel open, Sareth said, gripping the metal frame with strength that surprised him. Several minutes passed in tense silence, broken only by alarms and distant chatter. Sweat gathered on Daniel's forehead. The station shook lightly, just a warning. A reminder that danger was close. Suddenly, another tremor hit, stronger than before. Daniel nearly lost his balance. Sareth steadied him instantly. Thank you, he said breathlessly. You are not permitted to fall, she replied simply. Daniel kept working, his hands moving faster as he connected stabilizers and tightened power lines. The holographic map changed again. The Veil ships were closing. Their formation is aggressive, Sareth said. They will test our shields soon. Daniel muttered under his breath. Then we better make sure the shields don't give up. Another warning flashed on the screen. A minor reactor fluctuation. Daniel tapped the interface so fast his fingers hurt. We need to divert power now. Sareth placed her hands on the panel's side ports. Her armor lit up as she channeled energy stabilizers into the system. It was something only Aurelians could do. Sparks flickered under her palms, but she didn't move. Daniel stared at her. Yes, my armor is linked to this technology, and I trust you to guide it. He nodded, forcing calm into his voice. Okay. On my mark. Redirect the energy flow. She closed her eyes, and her armor glowed brighter. Mark, Daniel said. The shield arc brightened across the hologram, stabilizing just as the Viel fleet fired a testing shot. The station shook, but the shield held strong. A collective breath filled the room. Daniel looked at Sareth. Her armor dimmed, and she seemed slightly tired, but steady. You okay? Yes, but this is only the beginning. Daniel nodded. Then, we'll face the rest together. Sareth looked at him with calm certainty. That is what the ritual meant. They stood side by side as the Viel fleet adjusted formation, preparing for something bigger. The station crew awaited their next move. The air felt heavy, but not hopeless. Not with Sareth's trust beside Daniel, and Daniel's determination beside her. Neither knew how the coming hours would unfold, but they felt the same truth deep inside. Whatever happened next, humanity and Aurelians would stand together not because of treaties, but because two people had learned to trust. The Veil Dominion ships moved slowly across the hologram, like dark shadows spreading across a blue sea. Every person on Station Helion 9 felt the tension tightening around them. Humans watched the screens with worried eyes. Aurelians stood tall, calm but alert, their glowing armor shifting colors as they prepared for possible battle. Through all this, Daniel and Sareth stayed near the central engineering station, side by side, waiting for the next order. Another tremor shook the station. A few loose tools fell from a shelf. One of the human officers called out, "That was a scan pulse. They're testing our defenses again." Oh. Sareth looked at Daniel. They are measuring our strength. Daniel nodded. And if they think we're weak, they will attack without hesitation. She finished. Behind them, human engineers whispered nervously. Some were scared, others excited, but all of them looked toward Daniel, who had somehow become the one everyone relied on without even wanting to. Daniel felt the weight of that responsibility, but he refused to let fear take over. He had survived storms before, just not the kind that fired giant plasma cannons. A communication officer suddenly raised his voice. "We are receiving a transmission from the Viel flagship." The entire command center went silent. A holographic screen flickered on, showing the image of a tall, dark-scaled Viel commander. His eyes were like burning red stones, and his voice echoed cold and sharp. Helion 9. You shelter Aurelians and humans. We demand access to your station. Lower your shields, or we will force them down. The station commander stepped forward. This is a peaceful zone. We do not recognize your authority here. The Veil commander gave a slow, cruel smile. Then your mistake will be the last choice you ever make. The transmission cut abruptly. Daniel whispered, "That doesn't sound like someone ready to negotiate." "They believe they are stronger," Sareth said calmly. "They always believe that." As if responding to her words, the Viel fleet fired a warning barrage. The entire station shook violently this time, almost throwing Daniel off his feet. Lights flickered. A few consoles sparked. But the shields held barely. "Shields at 81%, someone shouted. Daniel swallowed hard. "If they hit us like that again, we're going to lose the secondary grid." The commander turned to him. Daniel, can you reinforce it? I can try, Daniel said, already running toward the engineering console. But I need more power routed from the core. Sareth stepped beside him immediately. I will stabilize the flows. I will stabilize the flows. A human security officer hesitated. Sareth, your people should be preparing for combat. My people trust me, she replied. And I trust this human. Our strength is combined now. Her voice carried across the room. Every Aurelian warrior turned their glowing eyes toward her. They listened. Daniel typed commands furiously. We need a temporary bridge between human tech and Aurelian tech. The systems aren't meant to cross-link. But maybe we can force a connection long enough to strengthen the shield. That is dangerous, Sareth said. Everything right now is dangerous, Daniel replied. We just need it to work for a few minutes. Sareth nodded. Then I will support the link. Daniel opened a control panel under the console and started connecting cables. Each cable was a different color and shape, and many were not compatible with Aurelian connectors. He sighed, picked up a welding tool, and began modifying the ends quickly. Sareth knelt beside him and touched the open system with her glowing palms. Energy flowed through her armor, stabilizing the power grid so Daniel could work without the system overheating. You always put yourself at risk, Sareth said quietly. Daniel gave a small smile. You do the same. This is different. I am trained for battle. And I'm trained for fixing things, Daniel replied. That's why this works. Another blast hit the station. Dust fell from the ceiling. The lights dimmed, and the floor hummed beneath them like a giant heartbeat. Daniel tightened the last cable and shouted, Okay, Sareth, send the energy through. Sareth closed her eyes, and her armor lit up like a bright blue star. The cables glowed as energy flowed through them, connecting two systems from two worlds that were never meant to work together. The shield hologram flashed brighter, rising from 81% to 94%. The entire room gasped. The commander turned to Daniel. You did it. Daniel pointed at Sareth. We did it. Sareth opened her eyes slowly. A little breathless, but steady. This is the strength of trust. Before they could celebrate, the vile fleet fired another volley. The shield shimmered, but held firm. The commander raised his voice. We will not yield. Prepare countermeasures. Aurelian warriors stepped forward, activating their own energy emitters. Human gunners manned their stations. For the first time in many years, two species joined forces not because of orders, but because of unity. Daniel stayed near Sareth. What now? Now we stand, she said softly. But the Veil weren't done. Their largest ship moved into position, charging a massive plasma beam. Daniel felt his stomach twist. That thing could crack the whole station. Sareth studied the glowing weapon. There is one option. What option? A direct harmonic countercharge. She looked at him. But it requires both of us. Daniel blinked. Because of the cross-linked systems? Yes. You control the human power grid. I control the Aurelian energy patterns. If we match the frequencies perfectly, the shield will reflect the shot. Reflect it? Daniel asked. Yes, she said. The Veil will take their own fire. Daniel stared at the massive glowing beam on the hologram. If we get it wrong, the shield will collapse, Sareth said calmly. Daniel breathed shakily. No pressure then. Sareth placed her hand gently on his forearm. The touch was light, warm in its glow. I trust you, Daniel Hart. He nodded. Then let's save everyone. They ran to the main control pillar. Daniel pulled up the human system interface, while Sareth accessed the Aurelian one through her armor. Blue lights merged with green lines, forming a swirling sphere of data. Match my signal, Sareth said. On it. Daniel adjusted the frequency sliders. Sareth balanced the energy flow. The two systems flickered, then aligned. The glowing sphere in front of them pulsed in rhythm with Sareth's armor. The Veil cannon fired. The plasma beam stretched across space, heading straight toward the station. It was huge, bright, and full of destructive power. "Now, Daniel," Sareth shouted. Daniel pushed the energy burst into the shield at the exact same moment Sareth sent her harmonic wave. The shield flared, turning from blue to white. For a second, no one could see anything. The entire command center went silent. Then the beam hit. The sound vibrated through the station like thunder. Lights blazed. The shield curved inward and then snapped outward like a slingshot. The beam rebounded, straight into the Veil flagship. The explosion was massive. Red flames spread across the hologram, and the Vile ships broke formation in panic. Some retreated instantly. Others fired randomly with fear. But without their flagship, their attack collapsed within minutes. Cheers erupted through the command center. Humans clapped. Aurelians raised their arms in victory. The commander shouted, "Shields at 70%! They're retreating!" Daniel leaned against the pillar, exhausted but smiling. Sareth looked at him with calm pride. "You did well." "You too," he said breathlessly. "I think we just saved 2 species." She nodded. "Not just saved. United." Hours later, the station fell quiet as repairs began. Humans and Aurelians worked side by side. The danger had passed, but something far more important had formed a true bond. Daniel walked with Sareth to a quiet observation deck overlooking the starfield. The lights were low, and the stars shone like scattered diamonds. "You know," Daniel said softly, "I never thought fixing a shield would lead to all this." Sareth turned to him. "Great things often begin with small actions." He smiled. Sareth looked out at the stars. "Our people will talk. They will write new agreements. They will remember what happened here." "And us?" Daniel asked. She faced him fully, her eyes glowing softly. Daniel nodded. "I like that." Sareth placed a hand on her chest, touching a small open space where an armor plate had been removed for the ritual. "You are part of my story now." Daniel touched his toolkit lightly. "And you're part of mine." They stood together in silence, watching the stars. Knowing that the galaxy had changed, not because of war, but because 2 unlikely people learned to trust across differences. Far away, in the darkness, the Veil survivors fled. Their defeat would echo through the galaxy. But Helion 9 stood strong, its shields glowing soft blue, powered not only by machines, but by unity. And that unity had begun with a simple act of trust, shared between an Aurelian warrior and a human engineer who never expected to matter so much.